For today, what we're going to do is talk specifically about what interviews are, because I see a lot of people who end up in this journey without realizing how things are. So, hi everyone, I am Avi. I am a neurology resident at Emory University in my PGY1. I also help a lot of medical students understand the USMLE journey from working on their PSS to their CVs to basically how to prepare for interviews. And I actually am passionate about medical education. So I have gathered tips how over the years, over the months, I give my 20 interviews and things that I realized no one told me while I was applying. And I made it a promise that I need to tell it to a lot of people because as international students, all of you are definitely more intelligent, more hardworking, at least, than a lot of other American graduates. Where we lack is the confidence, where we lack is the game that we don't feel what we know is appropriate, or somehow we are not good enough. Like, just a very simple example right here. Everyone's fine, but no one's comfortable even talking to each other, but we want to match, right? So that's where international students feel that we want to just be within ourselves and then somehow match, but that is not how this journey works. You have to start being comfortable around people, network, talk, and be the confident version of who you are. All right. So today's session is going to be a few tips that I want everyone to understand about what USMLE interviews are. And then I want a little interactive session where I'm going to tell you different kinds of interviewers. Not every interview is going to be same. Some interviewers are very friendly, very kind, that makes you feel a lot more comfortable. And some interviews are more old school, where even if they're asking a simple question, they'll make you feel so intimidated and you will lose track and you will mess all around. All of this becomes much more doable if you're prepared in your head. Oh, this is what is happening, and I need to tell these things about myself. So I'm also planning to release a series of these three interviews very soon on my YouTube channel. But because those are just videos, I want this session to be more interactive so that if you have any questions, you can ask me right now, because it gets difficult during my schedule in residency to individually answer everyone. So make the most of it. And like I said, if you want to ask me questions, just like Pravalika and Asmita, give them company and turn on your videos when you ask them questions. Okay. So one thing I want everyone to know is the USMLE interview system, the match protocol. It's not just for them to interview you. It's a rank order list that you make. So when you are being selected for an interview, that's only because you also selected that program. And that interview is as much an opportunity for you to match them. Once you feel that, once you know that, you find yourself in a much more powerful, comfortable position, and they will ask you to ask them questions too. A lot of times what students don't realize is that, you are not inferior to the program trying to get into their program. Even they want a great candidate. It's not great universities that necessarily make great students, it's great students who make great universities. So you have to realize that and have that confidence. A few simple tips before I tell you about different kinds of interviewers and what kinds of questions they ask, because with then I'm gonna like literally volunteer you guys to help me give an answer for each. You want to keep your interview answers short, because sometimes you just have 10 to 15 minutes with each interviewer, because everyone is on a tight schedule and obviously you can talk at length about everything in your life. It's almost impossible to talk, tell, represent who you are in like 10 minutes, in 15 minutes. But that's your job. Prepare for something which is called an elevator pitch. Filter out things that you know are super important to you, that this person has to know about you. When you're giving an interview, know, research about that person, what their interests are, and try to talk about things that line up with their interests. If someone's in a medical education background, you want to talk more about med ed with that person instead of a person who has nothing to do with med ed. So that's the smart way to go about it. And that's why you have like 4 to 5 different interview sessions with different kinds of people, different backgrounds. Some people are more interested in research, some people are more interested in med ed, some people are just basically interested in a specific kind of a fellowship. So you talk about that thing with that person. If you talk about a cardiovascular fellowship to a person who's actually a nephrologist, it makes no sense. So those are actually blunders as well. You won't feel it in the interview, but those will be the reasons that you don't match at that place. So you need to ask those questions very carefully. The other thing that I've seen a lot of interview candidates do is because of the panic, because of the fear, they over prepare their answers, they become so hyper mechanical while they're talking, and it reflects. It reflects. Although some places might still take you, but that's not the best way I want to look at you. I want to look at you as a person. I want to know that, okay, this person is comfortable talking. This person is honestly saying things. So if just to give you an example, during my interviews, they were like, oh, tell me about one thing that's not on your CV. And I literally had my magazine that I was the editor of in my hand. And I was like, oh, if literally the way I used to answer was, I would love to tell you about this magazine that I was a part of. I did this XYZ, and I also did like international quizzes, and we were a team of these many people. Like it was a story. You want to tell them this is what happened instead of like, this is a national neurology newsletter. This has this. I was the editor from this time to this time. All of that is written in your CV. You want to tell them, even if you've done something for one day, why is that special? You want to use your interview as a supplementation to your CV and your PS. It's not a substitute, it's not a replacement for that. Okay. The other thing that I want everyone to know is, at the end of the interviews, you will always get an opportunity to ask questions. You want to make sure that you ask relevant questions. Like I said, you don't want to ask a question just for the sake of it. And always at least try you are asking one question for sure to the person who's interviewing you. What that does is, one, helps you develop a and a relation with them. They feel that you are interested in their program. Be it a simple question like, how is wellness done in your program? Or I read that your program has a medical education track, or your program has a research track. Since I'm interested so much in research, can you tell me a little more about it? So one, a question like this will obviously not give you a complete answer, but it will tell that person that this person is interested in research. And trust me, as a resident, I take pre-interviews with my team at Emory, and we see how much interested you are in research, or what did you ask us, how are you sitting, how comfortable you are. We don't necessarily need you to be like super formal. We actually need someone who will be a good match to us, because we will be working with you for the next 3 to 4 years. We want to be with someone who makes us feel good. Academics, obviously your scores tell us that. Academics are not the forefront of an interview. It's okay. Once you're in the program, you will learn anyway. We trust our program enough. What we cannot change is your personality. So we want to know how good you are as a person, how amazing you are, what are your interests. I don't mind if you tell me you love watching Marvel movies. I love it. Like I literally had an interview at Mayo Jacksonville for one of my research positions, and I was literally just talking to them about Marvel's superheroes and stuff. And this guy turned out to be a fan himself, and he was like, "Okay, let's close the interview. I just like you so much. I want you here already." So obviously that's a part of it, but things like that can happen, right? So I'm just telling you, giving you an insight that an interview is two people talking and me wanting to like you. That's it. How you choose to drive that conversation has to depend on what you want to tell. And yes, definitely also assess the situation. So, like I said, know what kind of an interview are you in. There can be old school people who are very professional, very stern, will not give any expression, will keep on writing notes, and that can be intimidating. You'll be like, "What am I doing wrong? Why? What am I messing up with?" And that intimidation, trust me, even though you feel like I'm super comfortable talking to everyone, it intimidated me during my interviews, and I literally introspected what did I do wrong or whatever. And the interview went just perfect. I got a match offer from them as well, but you don't want to let that emotion take the better of you in that moment. You need to make sure that, oh, these are the points I want to tell in the interview. I have to mention them and not get intimidated. One other thing that I want everyone to know is, there are two kinds of questions you get asked in an interview. Questions that I expect you to know the answers for. And if you don't have good answers to those questions, it's kind of a red flag. Like basic questions. Tell me a little about yourself. Why do you want to come to the US? Why do you want to choose internal medicine? Tell me one challenge that you faced and how do you plan to overcome? Or tell me a few qualities about yourselves. Or where do you see yourself in 10 years? These are questions I expect everyone to be prepared with. And the answer can be whatever. Your answer can be like, oh, I'm still exploring. I like neurology. I don't know what do I like within neurology, and I plan to explore that in the next 4 years. That's a good answer. But you cannot say, I've never thought about it. Do you understand the difference? And you can also say that, oh, I would love to be a cardiovascular fellow at the end of the day, but you also want to tell me you don't want to skip the internal medicine residency part because that is the interview you're applying for, right? You have to be like, I probably see myself at a cardiovascular fellow, but for the time being, for the next 3 years, I want to learn as much of internal medicine as I can, right? You have to remember what position you're applying for. The other thing is the other kinds of questions that you get asked that you cannot be prepared for. You will get asked questions like behavioral questions, which you cannot be prepared 100% for. The key there is to not fall in the trap of feeling that, oh, you messed it up or you don't know the answer. Just take a moment, think about it, and give the most appropriate answer that comes to your head, because you're not just being assessed on your content. The other thing that is being assessed here is your expression. How do you handle a situation where you don't know the answer? How do you communicate? How clearly are you able to put your thoughts into words? All of that is being assessed subconsciously. And it's absolutely okay to give an answer which is not correct content wise, because there's not right or wrong in every answer. But don't feel intimidated. Don't be so underconfident to say that I don't know. Just give an answer. And all of that is part of your confidence game. One pro tip again before I wrap up this part and move on to the different kind of interviews is you have to know that the opportunity to introduce yourself, like 95% of the times, the first question that you'll be asked during your interview is like, oh, hi, tell me about yourself, or I went through your CV, tell me 3 things that I don't know about you, or what do you want to talk about, or what are you doing right now. That introduction is the vehicle which will drive your interview completely, and that's in your hands. You cannot say, if you were asked that, oh, I don't know where the interview went, I could not control it. That is how you control the interview. If there are xyz things that you want to talk in your interview, probably talk about them, mention them in your introduction. Like for me, medical education is important, so my introduction used to be like, I'm Avi, I was born, brought up, raised in xyz country here. I like to think of myself and as an inquisitive person. Also, medical education is a big part of me. I have my own YouTube channel. I have my Instagram channel called Medically Mediocre, XYZ. So you see, I bring things that I want to talk about in my introduction. And what that will do is drive the interview in that direction. They're like, oh, wow, you have an Instagram channel? Tell me more about it. Oh, wow, you have a YouTube channel? Tell me more about it. Whatever you want them to talk about is what you mention in the introduction itself. There is no hard and fast rule. I would rather not have a person who's like, oh, I am Avi, I was born in 1996, I did my med school here, that I did internships for 1 year, then I joined this. If you're mechanical and things are already in your CV, why am I taking this interview for? Do you get my point? You want to leave me with an impact in whatever way. You don't have to be this overly kind person who you are not. If you are, sure. If you, but you want to impress me by the way that you think this program would want to have me. If you're someone who can be super professional and can answer in a very clear way, even that is impressive to me. Just show me who you are. Don't be mechanical and monotonous. That's a tendency I've seen in a lot of graduates, because I know as international graduates you are great at academics, you are great at work, but this is where we lack. So we want to make sure, give as much practice mock tests. Over time you'll realize yourself, oh, this interview went fine or this interview did not go fine. So those were my pro tips for how do you want to be during your interviews. There are a few questions that I want to enumerate that people usually get asked. And once I do that, we can also move on to spotlighting some people and maybe hoping them to ask me some questions if you have any, or maybe just have an idea about how you would answer this question. And then what I can do is help you answer those questions better. And trust me, grab this opportunity because you would not get this frequently. And we always keep running like, I don't want to be in the spotlight, I don't want to be asked this question. What's the worst that will happen? You'll give an answer that you aren't happy with, but you will improve for your interviews, right? I've seen people who start this one day before their interview. I love the fact that most of you have joined in such early, a year before, or maybe some people are still medical students. This insight is very important about what interviews are. How do I want to be during my interviews, right? So, to take this opportunity, and let me tell you, I have been impressed by first year students who've taken this opportunity and realized that there is nothing right or wrong. And they have improved just because they answered me, oh, this is what I think. And I was like, sure, I love that answer, but this is how you can improve. Who's the winner in this situation? Obviously the person who's volunteering, right? And that's the key. uh, until I tell you my questions and stuff, you can feel free to drop in your questions in the chat box. We can go through them as well. And if you guys are uh, appreciating the session, please feel free to turn on your videos. So again, I like to think of interviewers in three different categories. There's a kind one, a friendly one, who makes you feel super comfortable, which is a double-edged sword because you can slide off that kindness and you can just waver off and you can just keep talking about some things. But this guy is still your interviewer. He still has those 10 to 12 minutes, right? Omnia, lovely question. How long should an answer be to a question? So ideally, it should, there is no limit. You have a total 10 to 15-minute time with an interviewer, and sometimes they don't even stop you. They're like, sure, if you want to talk about the same question for 15 minutes, go ahead. I'm going to cut my call after that. But you don't want to do that. Now, some questions which aren't super intriguing for you, like research, sure, is great to me, but I don't want to take 15 minutes on research because there are other things more important about me that I want to talk about. So you spend more time on things that are more relevant to you, and you drive that, right? And I would say, ideally, a minute should be the length at max for most questions. Okay, Amil, we'll reach out to that question after I tell you a few questions, and we'll make you turn on your video for that. So the friendly interviewer is gonna ask you something like this: "Oh, hi. What time is it in your country right now? Or what are you doing? Tell me a little about yourself." It's gonna be as simple as that. There's no separate bell that is going to ring when your interview starts. That is your interview, and you need to be prepared and start adapting to how you have prepared your answers. If someone starts with asking you like, "What are you doing right now?" You cannot be like, "I am Avi. I study in India, XYZ." You have to tell, "Oh, I'm in India. It's actually 2 a.m. here, and I like during my time it was Diwali back in India, so I was telling them a little about Diwali, which is absolutely fine. You need to intrigue them, have a very normal conversation, right? Um, so one important question, like I said, would be why did you choose the specialty you choose? Is why internal medicine or why neurology? And you want to give a legit reason. Your reason potentially might be that you never thought about anything else, or that your senior matched in internal medicine, or you think that it's easier to match into, but that's not the reason they want. They want to know why internal medicine. Ask yourself, why do you love diagnostics, or if you've had an experience. And again, it's going to be a challenge to keep that answer within a couple minutes, but you have all the time in the world to prepare for that interview, right? Again, one important question that a lot of people skip is, why did you choose our program? I know, sure, you might have been applying for 100 programs sometimes, but there has to be a reason you chose their program. You cannot just say or match or rank their program because you're applying everywhere and they just took you. Once you have gotten an interview, you want to know why do you want to go there. So I used to research every program. Oh, this program has a med ed track. I love that. This program is in a great city. I love that. And I used to mention all these things to them. Another thing that you can do is, if you have extended family in the area, that's a great thing to put, because that just gives them commitment that there's greater possibility that you would be happier being in their place because you have some family around, right? But you need to prepare for that question. Again, a very important thing, especially because now they have removed the section of hobbies and interests from your CV. They will ask you, "Oh, tell me about your hobbies or your interests," and that can be anything, especially if it's something unique. I like to think of hobbies in two ways. If it's either something unique, you don't, that will be a conversation starter in itself, like mandala art or calisthenics, or like I do something called medical poetry. So I usually used to start like, I've written 23 poems in four languages, few of them on medical topics like autism or diabetes, or I'm writing something on basal ganglia right now. That's interesting enough. I don't have to explain it too much beyond a point. Or I can share my YouTube videos with them. Make sure you do that if you have proof of things. I used to do something called like logo designing, and one of my interviews said, "Oh, can you show me a few of your logos?" And I literally have them on my phone, and I just show it to him. Like, is it okay if I just show it to you? And he was like, "Wow, I just asked you to show something, and you did." And the amount of impact that creates, right? Everything that you do, you say, you have to be ready with proof, right? The other kinds of hobbies are normal, regular hobbies, but then they have to be hobbies that you've done something amazing in. Like if you tell me that you are a runner, everyone can run, but what have you achieved in running? You can tell me that I'm a marathon runner. I've run like 3 marathons, or you can tell me something like I am a table tennis player. I've played for my state, or I've played nationally. Or you can tell me like I love to dance, and then just don't tell me I love to dance. Tell me what kinds of dance do you know, or if wherever you have performed, right? If you tell me I cook, a lot of people cook, but then tell me that you can cook 10 different kinds of Indian cuisines, right? You a lot of times we are so underconfident. We think like, oh, everyone can cook. But if you tell them in a way where they are like, oh, you can cook 10 different Indian cuisines, which might just be dal, which might just be rajma chawal, but they're still Indian cuisines, right? You have to start thinking on those lines that what are your USPs? Because a lot of people come to me and they say like, we don't have any hobby. What do we say? I'm like, do you cook? They're like, yes, we've been cooking. I'm like, I can't cook. So you have a better hobby than I do. So you have to start thinking about what you are and what you are not in a more comprehensive way, right? Not everything is academics, and that is reflective of your CV. Uh, Again, one important question you want to be prepared about is where do you see yourself in 10 years, right? Now, if you meet the second kind of an interviewer, which is an old school one, like I told, which is just going to intimidate you by the fact that he's going to make notes and not make a lot of eye contact and just make sure how you react to situations, that might be his strategy, that might be the way he is or she is, or that might just be because he's tired taking so many interviews across the months. Attendings are busy. But you have to know that it's your only shot at making things happen, right? So you have to still be on your A game. I like to think is like it is your opportunity to shine. So the burden to shine is on you, right? Someone will come to their program. That is what you're thinking, right? So you want to tell them, express them why they really want you. And all you need to do is just be yourself for that. So a lot of times they will ask you like, how was your medical school experience back home? Because it is going to be probably very different, right? The other thing you want to be prepared for is why do you want to come to the US? It is not easy. What are your reasons? So you want to be very sure, and you want to give me a good answer. Like for me, neurology and the research advances we have in US are are way ahead, and that is who I am. Like more into med ed, more into research. And again, another reason was I don't have to do medicine separately in the US, which is again a big reason, right? Whatever your truth is, you tell them that truth. It has to come across as a genuine answer, right? Again, they will probably ask you a behavioral question, something like if you're senior and you are on the same team and he interrupts you in front of a patient, how do you handle that situation? And it's absolutely okay, you've never thought about it. But just think, what is the ethically correct thing to do? You want to make sure you want to listen to the senior because she or he is your senior, but that does not mean you have to agree if it is against the patient's healthcare or if you just don't agree to it. But you don't want to have that argument or that conversation in front of the patient. So there's a lot of nuances to that. You want to tell that you will take your own stand, you will make sure you talk, have a conversation with the senior and come up with a consensus, but you will also make sure that you're not having that conversation in front of the patient so that the patient feels that the team is in unison, right? And again, there does not have to be an XYZ clear black and white answer, but you have to express that these are the lines that I think on, right? That is how I take behavioral questions. Sometimes, very rarely, can happen that they ask you an academic question. But what, according to me, is a good academic question is very basic things that you should be aware about. Like, oh, you were seeing a patient and the nurse pages you that this patient has starting having a chest pain. How do you manage? That's it. And sometimes you might not be prepared because you are preparing theoretically so much and you do not know things practically. But just be aware of those things like, oh, chest pain, I'm concerned about emergent conditions like cardiovascular syndromes, right? So probably I will get an EKG right away. I will get a troponin level. I will consider vitals, the most important thing, because am I concerned about a pulmonary embolism? Is there tachypnea? Is there tachycardia? Just again, show your thought process. And sometimes if it's an interviewer like me, I will kind of lead you as well. Like, what else do you want to do? Do you want to monitor something? So you hold on to those leads. Just don't feel devastated. Don't collapse if you don't know the answer. Use your common sense, right? Everyone knows, your students and doctors enough to now know that if you're having a chest pain, you probably will be concerned about cardiac issue. Same thing with shortness of breath, right? The more you know, the better for sure, but at least you should know the basics. Um, Again, one thing that a lot of people skip is because I've seen a lot of people mention research in their CV that they have done back in the day, or they've actually not even done, they've just collaborated with people. But you've written in your CV. How can you not know about it? I can literally straight away forward ask you, like, tell me a little about your experience. What do you do? What did you do in this research? What are your results? Because I expect you to know those things if you've written it in your CV. You cannot be like it was an old time ago, or you did not do a lot of things, because that will just be a red flag, right? If you've written anything in your CV, you have to know it. And if there's something you've actually done and you can't talk about it, I would rather remove it. Like, there were presentations and things that I did during my first year. Like, I did a lot of medical law presentations and medical jurisprudence, but I did not mention it in my CV because I realized, like, if they ask me about it, it's too old. I can't talk too much about it. I have so much else in my CV that's absolutely fine to take this one thing out, because I don't want to risk the fact that I write something and they talk to me about it and I can't talk well enough for it, because then my credibility is lost on every other thing that is in my CV. Do you get my point? And then most of your interviewers will be something that I call the balanced kind, which will not intimidate you specifically, but they will not be your friends that, like, they've known you for 100 years, which is, I think, absolutely fine because they have not known you for 100 years, right? So this is something how it will go. Like, hi, how are you? So I went through your CV and I appreciate that you have a very unique experience, but I would love to know a little more about you from yourself. So just tell me about three qualities that I should know about. So you see, I'm coming across, my words are not intimidating, but it's not overly friendly as well, right? Which you can expect in most of your interviews. But now all these combination of interviews can be in the same program itself, because you're interviewing to about 4 to 5 people. There's also a pre-interview resident session or open house kind of a thing. So just try keep giving as much interviewers to have a better experience. But a person like this will probably ask you questions like, uh, you're coming from a different country, any challenges that you faced in the US, or any challenges that you think you will, and how do you plan to overcome them? So you want to tell things like, oh, sure. Like, the first time I came, I am not delusional that there weren't challenges, but I'm glad I started balancing things, understanding things. You want to sell me on things, what you learned, and now why going into a residency would not be an issue for you. Things like, oh, it's the first time I used an EMR, but I used it for 6 months. I felt so comfortable. Like, when they used to ask me, I used to be like, I was relatively good at typing back in India as well. And when I realized EMRs are a system here, and basically it's paper charts back in India, I realized I'm a much more natural fit for the American system. So you see, I'm kind of selling myself in the direction of where I want to be through very simple things like, oh, I'm good at typing because those things are important. I'm good at communication. Like, I love teaching, telling things to my patients. And I know that's a big thing in the US. So that was something which was very appreciated. Like, even here during my residency, my patients appreciate the fact they're like, oh, you break down very complex words very simply to us and we understand what is happening. And I always felt that this is something that is my kind of a life of telling my patients what is going on with them, right? One unique thing that potentially people can ask you is, tell me something I won't find in your CV, or like, tell me something that you're most proud of. So this is your moment to shine, and I think everyone should have something that they can talk about here, and which can be academic, can be non-academic, can be semi-academic. What I mean from academic is, sure, you can tell me that there was this exam back in the day where I did not realize I prepared so hard, I challenged myself and I kind of topped, or I got the best scores or whatever. Like, I was all India rank 1 in AFMC. Sure, if that's a big thing for you, but you have to know that that is not necessarily what they mean. They want you to tell something which is impactful, right? So for me, what was impactful was that I was the vice chairperson for AMSA India for a year. I made a team of 200 college heads, state heads. I did like 400 events with them over the course of the year. We did a lot of we built a lot of new positions. I communicated with one member from every state every month. I enhanced my communication skills. That was such a learning experience for me. So this is semi-academic or even non-academic, right? But it's impactful for me, and this is important. This tells them, oh, this guy can communicate with people from across different states, across different backgrounds. He has such a cultural diversity experience. You want to talk about those things, right? So this can be something you mentioned in your CV, but you did not talk at length about it. But you want to talk about something that can leave an impact on them. One thing that a lot of people aren't ready for is when they ask you a behavioral question like, how do you think you respond to criticism, right? So you need to have a good answer to that question as well. So it's not an easy question to take because no one can say that, oh, I love criticism and I just absolutely fall in love with someone who tells me I'm wrong all the time. You don't, right? So you have to take it like, sure, I take it as constructive feedback. I try to find what opportunities I can improve, and I just don't take someone for their word. I analyze if that's really happening or not, and I don't take it personally. Those are a few things that you could potentially say. And again, I don't want to say that this is the correct answer or not, because nothing is black and white. You have to answer what you truly feel, and I feel that is the only way you can successfully navigate through all of these interviews. Again, at the end of these kinds of interviews, you want to make sure that you ask a relevant question. You end off at a beautiful note. You say thank you. Be charming. I want to see your smile at all times, not see blank videos. Definitely not in your interviews, right? Make sure when you start your interviews, you check your time double, triple, a lot more times, because America has 4 different time zones, right? Including the Eastern time zone where most of your interviews will be from, including the Central time zone, including the Pacific time zone. So all of this has a range of 4 to 6 hours, right? So you want to make sure again and again, again and again, make a notebook with all the interview timings, join half an hour before at least. If you plan to be in your home country, set alarms, wake up, dress professionally both up and below. Don't take the risk of not dressing, not being in your pajama below, right? You don't want to take any chances at the end. And make sure your videos are turned on, have a backup for your Wi-Fi. Sure, they can be super understanding, like, oh, we get it, technical glitches can come sometimes from their end. But you don't want to be the person who gives them an opportunity to not take you, because 100 people are applying for those 10 positions. If you not like, all they need is one reason to not take you. Sure, you might be great, but actually we couldn't interview him well enough because we just lost internet for some time. So I don't know you enough. That can be a reason I don't take you at the end of the day, right? Uh, so those were a few questions that I wanted to share with everyone. I hope they were helpful. I have talked about more of these questions in more detail as a mock interview. I have 3 videos like I talked about, which will be coming on YouTube over my channel very soon. Pravalika, can you help share the link in the group or in the chat wherever you feel comfortable?
Sure.
Um, so basically, if you have any more questions, you can definitely reach out to MSN. I love the fact that you guys are taking so many sessions to help prepare so many more people at such a young age. And I really hope, like, if most of you match whenever you match, and if you're passionate about helping other residents or students in the future, feel free to reach out to me. I'm planning to expand medically mediocre and find more like-minded people. Um, and it's a cycle. You always need to pass on whatever you learn, right? Because someone has to change that. Everyone feels that, oh, we now know only if someone would have told me these things before, but you got to change that for someone now in the future, right? And that's how things will change. But again, I want to close by saying that this is a long journey. It's I'm sure a lot of people might not be sure yet that they really want to do US, and that's okay to feel. You have to be persistent, but let me tell you, not like any residency anywhere in the world is equally hard. It's about what works for you, what doesn't work for you. If you've made up your mind, this is definitely worth it. I've had a great time in the uh, 5 months that I have been a resident. I am having more insights taking interviews at Emory, pre-interviews as residents. It gives me much more insight into how students apply, what questions they ask, what really matters in an interview. So I'm glad I can use that knowledge and guide as many people that you want to make the most of your opportunity at the same time, right? If there are any questions that anyone wants to share, please put them in the chat box. Uh, but I would definitely take any questions if someone has to ask me any question over an audio or a video before we wrap up. And what I can do is uh, ask Pravalika to share my channel as well. Okay. Okay. I got a direct question from Malvika. Will you greet the interviewer or wait for them to start? Okay. Malvika, do we have you?
Yes,
Hi, Malvika. How are you?
I am good.
Good. So what year are you in?
I just finished my internship.
Oh, lovely. And are you applying this year?
I'm planning for AMC actually, not USML.
Okay. But I'm glad like this works equally well for all the interviews. So what do you think? Do you want to wait for the interviewer to greet you or do you want to greet them?
According to the situation actually.
Exactly. Perfect. There does not need to be a rule to that. Uh, sure. I mean, just don't barge as soon as the interview starts because you don't want to come across as a hyperactive person at the same time, but you don't want to not start the conversation if no one's talking and come across as someone who does not take an initiative. So you're absolutely right. It depends on the situation. Long answer short.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. We have another question from Sumaya. Is accepting a pre-match a good idea? Lovely. I love that question. Um, do we have Sumaya?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Sumaya. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Very well. So, how about you? Where are you from? What year are you in?
I'm from Hyderabad. I'm in third year. I'm like preparing for step one currently.
Oh, lovely. So, if you're preparing for step one, anyone who is, if you just go on YouTube, just write 10 things USMLE step one. I've made a 10-minute video that probably can help you guys. But to answer your question, is accepting a pre-match a good idea? It's a bargain. It's not the best idea. It's not the worst idea, right? So you want to
Yeah.
make the most of it, depending on how many interviews you've gotten. If you're very confident, like sure, you have like 5 to 7 interviews, you can potentially skip the pre-match. You can take a chance. But if that pre-match is an offer that you really want to go in, like if it's in New York and then you want to go to New York and it's okay, that does not affect you because most pre-match offers can be very hard, can be very exhaustive, can be very tiring. I am someone who does not want to be at a program like that, so I personally would not. But if for
Okay.
you think like I am potentially not gonna take the chance and I'm nervous and I just have a couple interviews, it's not a bad idea to take it, right? It's just complete your residency. Again, long answer short is know your priorities and understand that program. Ask from people who matched at that pre-match program what this program is about. Take all of that in consideration because you're making that decision for the next 3 to 4 years, right? So you want to like really make sure you're going to the right place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Just
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. And do we have any more questions? Anyone who wants to volunteer with any more questions? Um, do we have Shantika with us?
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Hi, Shantika. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Where are you from?
Karnataka,
Okay. And what year are you in?
almost second year. I'm in my
Oh,
first year.
lovely. Very impressive. So, yes. What is your question?
Actually, it's not that great, but I did not do as well as I expected in my universities in first year. So I was a bit worried that it might
Okay.
affect my chances at the match, and I wanted to know will it or how much will it affect?
Okay. So, sure, I absolutely appreciate your question, and it's very valid for you to ask this question. But you have to understand, USMLE is not about one variable, it's about 100 variables. And trust me, your scores in your second year are one of the least important variables. That should not matter any much in the grand scheme of things. Your step scores are super important. Your letters of recommendation are super important. Your experience in the US is super important. Your scores in your second year, not really. To an extent, if someone tells me if they even failed, sure, that can be a kind of red flag, but still does not make it impossible. And you still passed with whatever marks. And you have to consider the fact that they don't know. There are universities which do not give great marks, and there are universities which give great marks. So they cannot standardize that system. That's why they have step scores. So don't let you performing not great in your second year be a barrier to you thinking about matching into US in the long scheme of things.
So my step score takes prevalence over whatever grades I score in the
Yeah,
university.
step scores are definitely more relevant. They at least filter you if you want to, or not. You get filtered through certain programs or not. So have you taken your steps already?
I'm actually in first year. I've not finished my second year.
Perfect. So just make sure you prepare the best for your steps. And if you get great scores in your step two, because that's the only step score that we have now, I'm I mean, there is no reason you don't have a great chance. I can already hear you. You're good at communicating, and if you just show me that you're good at academics through your step scores, you should have a very fair chance of being in the US.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All the very best. Perfect. Okay, I can take one more last question, and I will also request Pravalika. Can you share the link that I shared with you for my Instagram channel? Like I just texted the handle to MSN, I think.
Just a minute.
Just oh, or I can do that as well. Otherwise, uh, so any other questions? So guys, this is the name of my Instagram channel. So you'll find a lot of videos there and content to help you with USMLE. Feel free to follow, ask questions, but again, I would just re-emphasize the fact: use these opportunities when mentors are coming in person over videos to ask them questions, because most of us are residents and everyone's busy. We don't have the time to reach out to every message. I still try to make as many videos so that it helps so many more people. And partly we get help through great organizations with like MSN and GNA. I'm just glad while I was in my med school, I had a lot of association with them, and we did such great stuff. And I'm just so glad to see that the legacy is being continued on. So kudos to you, Pravalika and Asmita, and the whole team behind MSN. Keep going, and this is a lovely opportunity for you to help others as well as learn yourself. So I am so proud of you guys. Thank you so much for being a great audience, everyone. All the very best. Please feel free to uh, follow over Instagram. Feel free to put things in the comments of the posts that are relevant to you, that are more visible to me. I can answer better. Feel free to check out YouTube. There's a lot of content for everyone. And feel free to definitely leave comments on everything that you see. If we can improve anything, or you want to know have more videos on certain topics, because we see that and we make content based on that. Like someone did tell me, like, can you take mock interviews? And I was like, I would rather like take one and like post it for everyone, because that helps much more people and it's gonna stay out there for much more longer, right? Let us know how you like the session. Feel free to text me over Medically Mediocre, or let MSN know and GNA know. But thank you so much, Pravalika and Asmita. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for such an insightful mentorship session.